stomach just growled. All right, here we go. What's up, everybody? My name's Indy, and that gentleman way over there is Mr. Jay Powell from Powell Group Consulting, and this is Indie Game Business. Today, we've got our special guest, Lloyd Melnick, and we are talking about how to adapt to working at home.
Yes.
Which like... Yeah.
Lloyd's been on the show. He was on the show last year talking about the hyper casual craze. And now we're back. Hold on a second. I got to mute stuff.
Damn you.
I know. Now we're back. Lloyd, if you heard the show last time, Lloyd's the guy who taught me everything I know. And so
Sorry, world.
Yeah, I know, really. He and Kirk Owen, who were partners back, way back in the day in the late 90s, hired me straight out of college with absolutely no business skills at all. And, 20 years later, here we are. So, like me, Lloyd's been working remotely and with remote teams for a long time. But then a year ago, he actually transitioned over to full-time work from home. And so that's what we want to talk about. There's a lot of people who are a bit lost, a bit, confused right now on how to do this, how to do it effectively. And so that's what we want to talk about. So, Lloyd, take it away wherever you want to start. And
I want to comment on one thing. Why in the hell is everyone using Zoom? Why? Discord is so much better.
I know, but people don't. Discord is like rarely known outside of the game industry.
Right.
I mean, Lloyd, what did you say we'll get to this eventually anyway, but since we already started down the rabbit hole, what do you all use? And if you want to go into where you work, we'll start right there. But what do you all use for communication?
We use WebEx and Google Hangouts, and I will say Zoom's better. So WebEx is by far the worst. I am not, hopefully no one from Cisco is on the call, but if they are, maybe they can learn from this. But WebEx sucks. It's not user-friendly. It doesn't have good error handling. Google Hangouts is okay. It integrates, obviously, with Google products. That's the one I use most of the time. And then for group meetings, it's WebEx. But whenever I'm doing things external these days, it seems to be Zoom, and Zoom is better than those two. I think Discord is more, people look at it as a gamer chat. So they're not using it for other applications.
The thing is, so we used Slack internally for a long time, and then when Discord started growing in popularity, we switched to Discord because outside of all of the integrations that Slack has, which we didn't need, it doesn't do anything that Discord doesn't do. And so that's partly why we switched to what we use now. But let's rewind and start back at the beginning. For those folks who missed the first show, walk us through your career a little bit. Tell us how you went from Duke Business School to starting a game company, and then we'll catch up to where you are now and what you're doing with work from home at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I'll skip over most of this stuff. I don't want to bore people, but yeah. So I went to Duke Business School. We won a couple of national championships, beat UNC a lot of times. So those were the glory days.
You're up by one. That's it, one.
But that's from before I got there. I turned things around. But anyway, so after business school, myself and Kirk, who you mentioned, we started a game company, which was largely a kind of a consultancy agency at the time. So we were representing small development companies. It was a different environment, and they didn't really call them indies then, but in retrospect, they were. And we were like taking their games, licensing them overseas, vice versa. We went through the ups and the downs in the game industry. We went from, we got into it because games were just taking off because they could put them on CD-ROMs. So that tells you how long ago it was. And so then it could actually have graphics on it. Those were, the big breakout product was Myst. that was the thing that kind of changed the game industry and largely got me and Kirk into it. Not that we're never gamers like you or Indy or and 99% of the people in the industry. We definitely came at it from a business perspective, but we rode that CD-ROM wave, taking international games over to the US games overseas, and kind of commissioning our own games that we sold to places like Best Buy, or at the time Comp USA, Egghead, all those old retailers that hopefully bring back fond memories, or not so fond. Then we moved into that casual download space. Eventually social took off, pivoted our company to developing social games, were acquired by Playdom. Playdom was then acquired by Disney. My role was always on the business side of things, so doing the publishing, doing distribution, marketing. So at Disney, I was the GM for international publishing. Left Disney for a joint venture, a North Carolina-based media company. We won't talk about that, but that didn't really work out. After that, I moved over to a startup in the social casino space. They were acquired by Zynga. I was chief growth officer there, so again, responsible for everything external as well as internal product analytics and stuff. It's already getting boring, so I'm going to skip forward. At Zynga, I was a senior director for their casino group. Then I went over to PokerStars. They were starting up a social casino team. I was responsible for that. And a year ago, I left to join BGW, an Australian-based social casino company, where I'm general manager. I run a product called Chumba Casino. It generates about $400 million in revenue a year. So that's where we are now.
That's just 400 million?
Well, that was before this whole coronavirus driving people inside. So
okay, and so that's one of the first questions I have. I mean, working from home strategies aside, how has your world changed in the last month?
not as dramatically as the rest of the world. I feel bad saying it. It's helped our business, which is tragic. And this is not the way you want to grow your business. And you take no satisfaction. My business is up on the day anywhere between 10 or 20%. But poker is through the roof. Poker has almost doubled for us, and I still have obviously a lot of friends back at PokerStars. This is a company that's been around 15 years, has over 400 developers, and they're having problems keeping the product alive because they have so many people playing online poker right now. So online gaming, and just talking to my colleagues in online gaming, what you're finding is probably the industry overall is up 10, 20%. You are seeing it like hit or miss. It's again, it's really helping the leaders, and it's not across the board. Games that weren't performing are still not performing, so it's not like a rising tide's risen all ship. It's helped the rich get richer to a degree, and then in some places like social casino, it's even been better because people can't go to land-based casinos. It's driving more people. It's driving a lot of new users, and then a game like poker, it's doing really well, and my guess is any game where you have social interactions doing well now. So instead of having a poker night, you have to do it online.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing every single week, Steam is hitting a new record for concurrent users online and users on the system in general. And one of the publishers I spoke to a week or so ago said, they have got derailed there. They've seen a 400% increase in sales, and they haven't really done anything. It's like no change in marketing or anything like that. It's just a gigantic spike in revenue and sales. Can
I say something before we kind of talk about, because it reminded me of two things that I've talked about with people. One is, you always see in these things, people think they're a lot smarter than they are. So I think these people having like huge sales spikes, they haven't all of a sudden become great businesses, just like, airlines and hotels haven't all of a sudden become stupid. And if you think that long term, you're a lot better than you are, in 3 months, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. The other thing that we are seeing is, even though it is more revenue, Yeah, I think I even talked about with the hyper casual talk a year ago. It's a very VIP driven industry. We're already seeing our VIP numbers have come down because a lot of them have been impacted financially, and I think the positive impact we're seeing now could easily turn the other way. If we start hitting 30%, 40% unemployment, even for a medium term, in New York State. So I think I wouldn't get overly optimistic even on the business side because we're still really at the early stages of what's happening here.
So is it safe to say that we're seeing more interaction and the market in terms of consumers is growing, but that's not necessarily leading to a giant spike in long-term revenue?
I don't know if it's safe to say it. I would say that. That's my guess. I think it's safe to say we just don't know what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, I think that's the way everybody is right now. It's definitely going to be interesting, but I had not thought about that, but you're right. I mean, if this goes on, then even those VIPs are going to start, basically hoarding their money a little more and not spending it on games. But then if you run and you make a big adaptation to start doing more and more stuff online, and when everybody goes back to work, it's going to have a rubber band effect. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons that you're here is because you have been, I mean, even when you were working with Playdom, or not Playdom, but Zynga, you weren't in an office all day. You were from home. You worked in like, what was it, Chicago some weeks, and in San Francisco some weeks. You've been doing a lot of remote work for years. And of course, even way back in the day, we were managing remote teams. Yeah. So what are some of in the last year, since you've gone to a full-blown work from home, what are some of the biggest changes that you had to get used to? And what are some of the things that you've done to adapt?
It's actually why I was really eager to join the call and think I might be able to add some help. Because, like you said, I have worked like remotely and semi-remotely for years, and I think most people have these days because no team's in one place. And I wasn't particularly good at it. And I never thought I was as effective when I wasn't in the office in Chicago, when I was at home. And working with remote teams, I always felt it was a little hit or miss. And actually, when I started PokerStars 5 years ago, my biggest initiative was to get my team was dispersed between Isle of Man, Dublin, London, and Paris. And I pretty much got everyone to move to Isle of Man. Because I wasn't a big fan or didn't think it was that effective. And my world changed when I came to VGW a year ago. It was my biggest concern in taking the job because 90% of my team is in Perth in Australia, which is almost the inverse time zone. And then I actually have direct reports in 7 different time zones now. So I have people in Sydney, Perth, Malta, Vancouver, Toronto, and one other place I can't think of.
Somewhere else.
I know there's 7. But I was really worried about it, and it's been so seamless and so effective that I wanted to come on your show and kind of discuss it with you and Indy and kind of maybe even figure out why it's worked so well. And now that my team has had to go remote, so even though I was working remote at VGW, I had several people who worked, but again, most of the team was working in one of the offices. So, but now they're all dispersed. Everyone's working from home because the same things you're dealing with in, North Carolina, they're dealing with in Australia, they're dealing with in Malta. Malta's the other place, and they're dealing with in Canada. So everyone's now working from home, and every team is dispersed. So I've actually been helping them along the way. So I think my biggest thing is don't try to do exactly what you would do in an office at home. Don't just take all your meetings and put them into Zoom or Discord or whatever you decide you want to use. You actually need to, just like when you port a game, if you just take it from Xbox over to a mobile phone, it's going to suck. And you look at how few games made it from console to PC. It's the exact same with work. If you try to port a office experience to a work from home experience, it's not going to work. You have to reformulate your meetings, reformulate your day, and just, even the tools you're using have to be really optimized for what you're trying to achieve. And that's also a big part of it. You need to understand like the end game and how you're going to, and then work out your plan on how to get there. I also find you have to be able. Go ahead.
So why doesn't it work? What causes the problems when you try to adapt that work schedule to your home schedule?
I think a big part of it is a lot of your effectiveness in an office is based on informal interactions. It's walking around, talking to someone, thinking of a problem, asking them what to do, asking for help, offering a suggestion. I think to be honest, I think most of your time in meetings in an office setting is a waste. And most of your useful time is sitting at your desk or chatting to your colleague next to you, or going over to the Diet Coke machine or whatever. That's where you get the value. But what you end up doing if you just try to translate it online working from home is you take the part that's the waste, the actual meetings, and you miss the other interactions. You miss the things that are actually helping you achieve something. So I actually find that I used to not be a huge planner. I used to be driven by, at the time, goldmine, by my online system, but not really like plan out my day. I never had to-do lists and stuff. I find that working remotely, you really need to plan things much better and figure out, okay, today I want to figure out what our business plan is going to be if multiple people get sick, and then work out. So this means I have to talk to X, Y, and Z and schedule those calls. And then after that, I have to, spend some time in my Google Doc mapping it out. Then I have to share it with people. And I end up going in and scheduling all those things in my Google Calendar and scheduling the meeting, scheduling the calls with people, but actually scheduling out all the steps. And then at the end of the day, it gets done. Otherwise, I end up getting sidetracked and waste most of my day.
Yeah, I'd never get sidetracked and start playing a game instead of doing, what I need to be doing. But that's one of the things. So one thing that I hear from people in terms of, when they're talking about having to work from home now, that's what they say. It's like, whoa, I'm going to miss out on the chats, and especially in game dev, like you said, if somebody has a problem, and you're all there in one big office, and you're like, hey, look, whatever's not working in the code, and they can fix it. That's one of the things that I hear from developers that they're concerned about. And my response, I've working from home and running a distributed company now for 10 years. And when I see when I see that question, or, I saw somebody the other week said, what do we do now that we have to educate our kid and work at the same time? And I'm like, look, what you'll find is the time that you spent in stupid ass meetings that you didn't need to be in is going to more than make up for the time that you need to be a parent or you need to be an educator. We're unfortunate here. My wife got laid off, so at least for the couple of months, she can do that education side. Whereas last week I was going back and forth and doing it. But it's amazing once you get going in this, you realize to do everything that you need to do or you needed to do when you were in an office and now you're at home, it can be done in like half the time.
Yeah. And you arguably have twice the time because you're not spending time commuting. You're not spending time walking, taking the elevator down for coffee 5 times a day. You actually end up having a ton more time. But you actually kind of hinted or touched on another reason not to port things. Also, don't port your schedule. And we've actually just as a company told our employees, you don't necessarily, so like in the office, you're going to be there 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever. And people, when they initially moved to the work from home, try to do the same thing. But in these days, the weird work from home environment because you also have your kids home from school and stuff. You know, rather than trying to do 9 to 5, you know, you can have that 3 hours of homeschool or 3 hours of schooling, say 2 to 5, where you're with them when they're logging in and talking to their school, which could be remote, and then you work from 8 to 11 instead in the evening. I'm making up times there. But again, rather than trying to copy the day that you had when you worked from the office, start from scratch. You know, do it as a clean slate, and don't think you have to work on the same schedule. Now, you'll have to have meetings. You have to find the time that works for everyone. But your world is different now, and it's different not only because you're working from home, but because of this virus situation. You know, everyone's world's very different. And I think the important thing is being adaptive and really leaning into that situation rather than trying to force a old framework onto a situation and then becoming ineffective. Because if you are trying to work while you're trying to homeschool your kids, and a lot of people are having that challenge right now, it's going to get messed up. You're not going to be effective, and then you're just going to be drinking during those extra 3 hours you would be on your commute. You know, you have to. I didn't say that's not a bad thing unless you're not getting something that you want to get done.
It is something to keep in mind. There's no set way to work from home. I mean, everybody's going to have their own way of getting it done, and everybody's got their own priorities now. And so, you know, we just had a couple of weeks ago, we had one of our online conferences, and now it's nothing, no big deal when somebody's like, hey, look, hold on, I got to go, you know, do something with my kid real quick. Or it's not like it used to be like completely unprofessional. I mean, you remember the guy on CNN or whatever it was whose kid like came in during the conference call, and it was like global news. Now it's just like, okay, whatever, your kid came in during the conference call. Everybody's working from home now. It's a thing. But you've got to find that system that works for you. Because for as many books have been written about how to effectively manage an office and run an office, and all that shit's out the window now. I mean, it's just one of those that you got to get stuff done when you can get it done. So when you're coordinating meetings and schedules around 7, you know, time zones globally, what do you use to schedule those?
I mean, we use Google Calendar. I mean, there's nothing, you know, we're aware enough of other people's schedule that we kind of keep, you know, we think in different time zones. You know, I think that's, and we try to be considerate of each other. You know, I think that I will block off time from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. where people can't schedule things for me. And, you know, and I'm the only one in my time zone. So it's like, but again, most of my team's in Australia. So time zones aren't as big an issue because, A, we're aware of them, and I think people are relatively sensitive to it. I do want to touch on something you just said a minute ago. It's like, you do need to get a system. Even though there's no right system, you have to think of the right one for you and do it, because I am finding that, like, it's working out really well, 80 to 90% of people. 10% are adrift. You know, they're because they don't have a structure. They're like, they're not getting stuff done, but they're also, but it's not intentional. They feel they're a mess. You know, because they feel like they don't know what to do. They're really stressed because they don't have a structure. I think the important thing is getting some kind of system in place, and you need not everyone could have it different, but you need some kind of structure, or else you're going to be a bigger mess.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, and I try to sit back and I think, what's my structure on a daily basis? But there is one, but I don't think about it. It's like, you know, I have certain hours that I'm, you know, I open up for meetings. So it was like a 2-hour or 2.5 hour break in the middle of my day that, you know, I used to go pick up my son from school. Obviously, I don't have that anymore. But then, you know, effectively, if you're in a situation where you have 2 people working from home, you've got to manage both schedules. And so you may find yourself sitting in the living room with a laptop at 8 o'clock at night doing emails where you normally wouldn't do it. But it is a matter of you do have to find your own key to it. So,
but this is also why I think you need to schedule it, because you need to schedule that time, and you need to schedule your partner's time so that you're not conflicting. Or else you're going to run into a lot of situations where you wanted to jump in a meeting and then all of a sudden your partner's on the meeting. Or you might be in a situation where, bandwidth is becoming a bigger issue on my calls. I'm having a lot of conversations where you have to shut the video down, or you actually even have to move into text chat because I'm seeing it actually more in parts of Australia, but it's because there's so many people working from home. But I have negotiated with kids when they stream. And for the other times, they schedule and they actually, they download content if they want to watch a movie when I know I'm going to have a call, you do negotiate things like HD versus SD, it's things you never talked about before. But I think it goes to, I really do think you have to plan ahead a lot more now. And otherwise it's really easy to get distracted, and even on business stuff. So you might be working on a really important deal in your case, and you don't want to spend an hour setting up a podcast and not get a deal done that's going to generate millions of dollars in revenue. I think it's really important to kind of like set those buckets so you get the important stuff done.
Yeah, that's why my desk is completely like littered with notepads and all kinds of where I try to keep my world somewhat scheduled. What else how is the rest of your studio, how have they adapted? Are there issues that you're seeing in general with them, or is everyone pretty much adapting okay? But how's it going on for everybody else?
I think the challenges we initially faced, so it's only been the first weeks, the only people who've really run into challenge are the ones with younger children at home. Trying to, taking care of that, especially if they have a working partner, and I think most of the people on my team do. That's been the big issue. They've been pretty focused. Productivity's been up so far, I would say overall. Stress has been up also, though. You'd almost think it'd be less stress because they're at home, but there's more. It's also hard to separate from the virus. The other thing that I've been doing is like just looking through. We use Slack all the time, my direct message channel, and reaching out to people I wouldn't normally talk to check in on them, because it's impacting different people in different ways. In terms of how we're doing it, it's going to everyone's scheduling things. Our schedules are open to each other. We already had we use something called OKRs, so everyone knows their objectives and key results for the quarter, which is effectively goals. So checking in on those every week and making sure they're focused on them, and really just looking at the release roadmap. Everything's been going well. I don't get involved in the development because that would just slow things down and mess things up, because I'm no more technical than I was when you knew me, Jay.
No, me either.
So I can't tell you how they're doing it, but they're doing it, and I think it really is just with check-ins and everyone having very clear objectives of what they're trying to achieve.
And you've got to be more human now. You have to realize that it is a lot of stress. And even I'm not one that gets overly, burdened with stress. But even if you're not thinking about it actively, there's a lot of stuff that's uncertain right now. We don't really know how long this is going to be the new normal. We don't really know, what things are going to be like 6 months from now. And you've got to understand that, there are people that are dealing with a lot more than you are right now, and that's the reality of it. I used to get, there was nothing that would drive me crazier than someone who scheduled a meeting with me and they scheduled it, and then they don't show up for it,
That still drives me crazy.
Absolutely. It's like you picked the time that you wanted to do this, and now you're not ready. But now it's like, it's just like, whatever, I understand. I get it. You have no idea what's going on in their world right now. We had several people from mainland Europe the other week I think it was mainly in Spain and Italy, their bandwidth, their internet was getting so hammered that they couldn't get on to do video calls, and that's just that's what's part of it now. So I think things
I would say I would agree and disagree. So you're more charitable than me. I think you really have to make an effort, though, to remember. Like, let's say everything hits the fan at your house, and you're going to miss 3 calls. Spend that minute and let people know you're not going to be there.
Oh yes.
I think, and that's where I'm like, if someone sends me a message even a minute before the call, my internet's down, or my kid's screaming, or my wife's just got laid off, I have to talk to her. No problem at all. I will not. I'll ask them how I can help, as opposed to be upset with them. But if they blow off the call, if it's something awful, yeah. But it's like, try to make the effort at least not to, because otherwise that person's going to be there with a half hour lost of their time.
Yeah. I agree. I always, because we use Google Hangouts too. So if somebody is like not there within 5 minutes of the call starting, I just hit the little button. This is email. Everybody can go, hey, I'm here. Is everything okay? And if you're just one of those things that it's almost like there's so much other shit to worry about right now.
Yeah.
You can't let little stuff blow your top like it normally does. So aside from Slack, for internal communication, I mean, what else have you done in the last year to kind of adjust to, working from home now with, wife, and now you got, all the kids are home too. What else was a major change from what you were doing going into the office over there to not, basically?
I think I'm fortunate. I think it's easier to work from home. My children are older, so I actually see less of them now that they're at home than when they were going to school. Because at least I used to see them when they went out to school. So that part hasn't been a huge adjustment. I think where the big adjustment is, I'm someone who socializes over coffee, over meals, as you know. How many meetings do we have at the Fiesta Grill?
I follow you on Instagram. I know how you are.
Exactly, but it's actually a big part of how I work. And I've had to move to having much more one-on-one meetings. And not only with people on my team or who I report to, but even colleagues. So I'd say half my day is one-on-ones now, where in the past it would have been, okay, I'd go out once a week for lunch with you, once a week for lunch with Joe to talk. But in those conversations, I'd know what's going on the accounting, on what you're doing. I've had to institutionalize that. So I have a lot more meetings, really with a very loose agenda, just to kind of keep a feel on what's going on, and especially other parts of the business outside of my team. I probably would have always been I always talk to the people I work with a lot, but the people I'm not working with on day to day, I've had to make much more effort doing meetings with them without spending your whole day in meetings. I mean, that's the trade-off, because I also think meetings are incredibly unproductive and a waste of time a lot of the time. So it's like, how do you, finding that right balance to maintain the relationships, know what is going on, as opposed to having a meeting for meeting's sake. And it's honestly, there's no formula, like you said about something else earlier. There's no secret to it. It's kind of come by feel. I've ended up canceling some of those one-on-ones, changing them from every week to every month or every 2 weeks, and changing ones from every 2 weeks to every week if it seems like there's a lot of stuff. I try not to have anything more than 25 minutes, because then it just does become either a rant or just a waste of time. I use Trello a lot to take notes of things I want to remember for the meetings, because my memory wasn't good 10 years ago when we worked together. It's worse now. So just making sure, because the worst thing is, okay, you have a meeting every 2 weeks and you forget the 2 important things you wanted to ask during that meeting. So I do try to keep Trello so I can actually make sure I at least cover the important things. But it's more about, you have to be more proactive in your communication. You have to be more proactive in your relationships.
And relationships is that's what this industry is. I mean, we talked to so many people who are coming into the industry. I had a call this morning with a payment provider, and they were they had been working with the big guys, the huge companies for years, but they were talking about how to, navigate the smaller teams. And I'm like, you really just have to be social. You have to be out there. It's not about, we got to get this deal done. We got to get this deal done. That was one of the things that, we used to use, because we used to use Goldmine, obviously. And it was constantly, and this is still like my pet peeve with CRMs. It's like, what is your % chance of this deal getting done? And I'm like, no. I mean, and a lot of these systems are set up for industries that are much more rhythmic than ours. And it's like, so what's your average, deal lifespan? I forget what it's called. However long it takes you to close a deal. And in our industry, I've done deals that took a week. I've done deals that took 6 months. There's no real, give in there. And it's one of those things where I completely lost my train of thought on all this. Anyway,
relationships, communication.
Your relationship, yeah, that's it. The relationship is what matters. I've got people that we've been talking to about becoming clients for over a year, but I don't get wrapped up in it. I don't get worried. That's still something that's progressing. You've got to make sure you've got that, whatever your social out is. So when y'all are in Slack, I mean, is there like a room where people can just chat? Or is it all one-on-ones?
No, we have too many channels. There's a lot of conversations going on, and there's like one called random, there's one called conspiracy theories. So but I think normally the general kind of chats like you're talking about happen in what I would say are 5 to 15 person groups. So like my direct reports, or maybe the heads of the product team or something. That's enough. There's enough critical mass there to keep it interesting, but it's not too many people. Because what I find there's some huge Slack channels, and they just go off on tangents to the point where it's ridiculous. So it's go ahead.
I should say we need to. This is just my train of thought jumping in, but you're right. I mean, so you can absolutely have, and this doesn't matter if it's Discord or Slack. If you've got 20 or 30 channels, it's chaos, and people tend to tune them out. We need to have a Discord or a Slack expert on the show to give us optimal whatever's for doing these things.
So you asked what we've done in the last 2 weeks. What I have done is create some small Slack channels to discuss specific issues that we wouldn't have had before. Because what I found is even issues that are being discussed in a bigger Slack channel, I've broken it off into a conversation of 5 people who, for lack of a better word, get shit done, and have them in the conversation, and let the other people go off on their tangent and just talk to talk. That has been very important in terms of moving things forward. So I hadn't thought about that till you mentioned it, but that's one of the big things in the last 2 weeks that I've noticed that's had a really positive effect.
Dexter just mentioned minimalist mode on the Indie World Order Discord. Dexter, I don't even know what that is. If you get a chance, type in what it is. And in the meantime, in chat, this morning I got together. Somebody was asking about online conferences, and I needed to put something together. So if you go to bit.ly/online game conferences, I've actually compiled a list of all the upcoming online game industry events that I know about. And if you know about one that I don't know about, there's a link on the bottom to actually add one. So there's that for you as well. That's my concern is, and if you're out there and you need somewhere to chat and you need that social aspect, I mean, our Discord server's got 900 some developer and publishers on it now. You can always come hang out with us over at discord.gg/indiegamebusiness. But it is, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we can look at it, but it's basically, you just need to find your own rhythm, make sure it works for your family and your office, and then stick to that schedule. Because I mean, not schedule, but stick to that list. Because I like that. That's one of the things I've had to do too. Is it's like I have to have a to-do list going on, and you're not sitting in an office anymore. Your boss isn't looking over your shoulder to see what you're doing all day. It is easy to get wrapped up and off on some other tangent along the way. So it's interesting. That's the bottom line, and then you just got to find your own thing. So what else am I missing, Lloyd? What else has changed? What other advice do you have? I mean, do you do the whole thing where everybody's like, stay in your normal routine, where you get up and you have a shower and you commute to work, and how much of that normal routine do you have? I'm
saying stay the opposite. Create a new normal. So my routine, so part of it is the time zone difference. So my calls start at 6:30 or 6 in the morning. So I get up a half hour early just so that my voice isn't breaking or something on the call. But I also, it's different every day. So if my first call is at 8, I'll get up at 7. I'm not going to get up at 5:30 or 4 every morning because that's just stupid. So I don't get into a routine that way, and I'm not trying to keep the same routine. I do. Yeah, I think everyone kind of has to follow their own. I do dress the same as I would if I was going into the office, and I will be for my first call. And I generally shave, so I do try to keep that.
I do none of that.
No, and I'm not saying people should. You asked me what I do. I don't think that makes a big difference. It makes me feel more comfortable. So what I will say, and it might actually give you a heart attack, so I hope you're sitting down. I actually schedule an hour a day, or I schedule 45 minutes a day on the treadmill. And I think it's incredibly, and this is what I was going to say, and I actually put up a blog post because it reminded, this is the biggest change. When you end up working from home all the time, you could end up not moving all day, yes. Almost literally. And yes. Then you feel so bad at the end of the day. So I have, I've scheduled this 45 minutes on the treadmill. Just 2 weeks ago, I set up my standing desk. I had used it, and then I didn't set it up when I moved. It's made a world of difference in terms of helping me be sharp on phone calls and not get distracted. I think you can easily let yourself go when you're working from home. And, and especially for the people who aren't used to it, like you now know kind of your normal and how to keep yourself. Same with Indy, and people who've worked at home have a thing. Someone who's worked in an office for the last 5 years, they're now at home. They could all of a sudden get into a real downward spiral where you're not getting up. You're probably eating too much.
Yes, that's the first thing. It's like you start eating everything.
Yeah. Exactly, and not necessarily good stuff. And again, coming from me, it's arguably very ironic and precious, but it's like I'm also very sensitive to it. And you can start drinking earlier. I've had it's definitely I have no issues with it, but I've had a lot of one-on-ones with people in Australia. It's their evening; they're already drinking. But what I'm finding is that people are starting to drink earlier, and I think it's because of the stress, because of the situation. Alcohol. Like anti-alcohol. I like to drink occasionally, but it's a depressant. So doing it when you have stressful times and doing it earlier and having no physical activity and eating a lot of garbage is not really going to help you, not only in your work effectiveness, but how you feel.
Yeah.
And I'm not this self-help guy. Coming from me, if I'm saying it, it's, they're really, I'm the last one to preach exercise or eating well.
You bring up a good point, and one of the things that I'll say is you can't, especially right now, if you have an off day. I had one yesterday. I had a lot of meetings in the morning, but, I wasn't there, so to speak. And it's going to happen. You're going to have those days. And so you can't, beat yourself up about it. I mean, the world is going to keep on going. And, as long as you aren't completely like blowing off work meetings and things like that, if you have one of those off days, don't beat yourself up about it. Yeah. This is new. This is an adaptation for all of us, really. I mean, yeah, it's like everybody's like, so how's it changed to your office? I was like, it hasn't changed at all. I get up in the morning, I come downstairs to the office, I work, and, I go to lunch. Then, the difference is now my son's home, and now, my wife's home as well. But there hasn't been a lot of change on the day-to-day business side for us, but there is a lot of change in life right now. Yeah. And so, if you have an off day that you don't feel it, then take a mental break, get a good night's sleep, come back and hit it in the morning. It's not the end of the world. Or
reach out to some friends.
Yeah.
I think, especially now, everyone wants to, it's not even help. Everyone wants to, it's like, I can't think of a meeting I've had where we haven't spent the first 5 or 10 minutes talking about coronavirus. It's like, even very high level stuff, people and stuff. People want to talk. They want to vent. And it's like, and they have no trouble if you do. So it's, again, go to your Discord channels or go to your direct messages in Slack. Just randomly pick someone and ask them how they're doing. Even if you're having a shitty day and you want to talk about how you're doing, ask them first. And all of a sudden they're going to have to respond, well, how are you? And then, that just opens the floodgates. I will argue that's better than drinking that bottle of Jack you might have sitting next to you. It depends. It depends, but
it depends on the day you had. And we've talked about this before on the show. It's one of those things that I learned several years ago is we have a tendency, as humans. This isn't like a gender or where you are in the world type thing. If we're going through something difficult, the immediate reaction is like, you just think it's like, I'm the only one going through this. And now what we're going through, literally everybody in the world is going through it. It's
right.
Not,
and we're going through it together, and no one's gone through it before.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're all in the same boat.
So this is just absolutely, the time to, reach out to friends, reach out to people in the industry, just ask people in general, it's like, how are you doing? What have you done to adapt? I mean, because everybody's got their own little thing that they're doing to get through it, and people are willing to talk about it and share. So yeah, that's a given.
Yeah, and it also puts it in perspective. I was doing one of my direct messages to someone 2 days ago. He works in our Malta office, but he's Spanish. It's hit Spain hard. His aunt and uncle are both in their 80s and both in the hospital. So it gave him someone to talk about with it, but more importantly, it made me realize some of the stuff I was whining about or whining to myself about was just stupid, and to be worried about that was just it was unfair to people who have real things to worry about.
Yeah, and it's like we're like that right now, where we are. Everything's locked down, but it's not that bad here comparatively. We can go out and get food, we can go out and get toilet paper, all of that stuff isn't that hard to get, but I mean, yes, you don't know what the next 6 months is going to look like. I mean, so Andy, what's changed on your world?
We had a spa day, and I got my fingernails and toenails painted pink.
That's different.
I mean, I got a daughter and a granddaughter, and they had a spa day, and she's like, "Opa, I want to paint your toes and fingernails," and I'm like, "Okay." But really, I mean, for me, nothing's changed, and since we sold the barbershop, Honey's has been going to school from home, and my daughter already schools from home. So really, and then my wife's dad is here. So really, the only change is that Izzy's not going to school. And we don't really go anywhere, I've got this mask, and I've got this mask, and I've got Clorox and hand sanitizers. I think I wash my hands a lot more than I used to, instead of just before I eat or after I go to the bathroom. Now it's multiple times a day. You touch anything and you just obsessively wash your hands.
Yeah.
You do the whole this way and then this way and then this, and the whole little process. Did you ever see that video of guy wearing gloves, and then he had like some, and I'm like, oh crap, I've been washing my hands wrong this whole time. And so now I wash my hands correctly, apparently.
That was a random video that was amazingly eye-opening to me as well. I'm like, oh my God.
And I also relish touching my face when I can. Oh, my hands are clean. I can wipe my nose, you know, I can scratch my face.
That's a good point. That's always in there as well. I mean, I think, Lloyd, have you got anything else? I mean, we've covered it. I mean, get your system in place, and realize that your system won't be everybody's system. You know, get some good tools to work around, and you know, don't overthink everything. That's
and touch base with everyone regularly, like both on a business relation, maintain the business relationships, but also help out everyone because they could be going through a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, and actually what Indy just said brought up something completely new. I mean, we talked about you're most likely going to end up with extra hours in your day because you're not in meetings and you're not commuting. It's a fantastic time to learn something, you know, even if it's not business related. Go back and you know, there's a lot of online courses around just general education with history or astronomy or whatever it may be. I took a marketing course on Coursera, you know, several years ago, but you know, it's a good time to brush up on some stuff that you might have neglected over a while.
I mean, that's a good point. It kind of I do it as a part of my scheduling, but it's like, make sure you use up that time well, because just like, you know, you don't want to end up having drank that bottle of Jack when you probably shouldn't have. You also don't want to end up having watched 8 episodes of Bang Theory. And afterwards, you probably feel worse than you did after drinking the bottle of Jack. You know, it's like, don't waste 4 hours, you know, watching, you know, 2.5 Men or something. That's, you know, it's you know, try to even, that's why planning becomes so important. And you mentioned Coursera. That's still my favorite. There's millions of online learning things, but the quality and the fact that you can get almost everything for free, that's still the place I'd go for learning. You know, otherwise, you know,
Look, I binge watched Tiger King the other night, and I don't consider that wasting several hours of my day because, oh my God, that's a train wreck that you just have to watch.
Oh no, binge watching is cool, and I'm still, there's actually several shows that I want to do. But what happens is, if you end up with those extra few hours, you end up watching something that you don't even want to watch. Again, Big Bang Theory.
Watch Tiger King instead.
Okay, I will actually.
The Boys on Amazon. That's what we watch.
I don't have Amazon.
Oh, it's so good.
Amazon Prime.
You don't have Amazon Prime? Get out.
I mean, we did for a long time, but we just don't use it.
You just never ordered things?
No, well, it's like, so when we lived where we used to live, if you wanted something, no matter how random it was, you could go out. But I mean, you were going to spend 20 minutes with traffic and everything else getting to where you needed to get and buy it and then back. And so, Amazon Prime made sense. It's like, God, it's going to be an hour one way. I mean, it's going to be an hour trip to go get this. I'll just order it. But now where we live, I can literally be at any store I need to be at in like 5 minutes. And so it's one of those that not only do you get to support the local stuff, because, you know, regardless of what a lot of people say, when you buy something at Walmart, you're still supporting local people. I mean, there's a lot, those people that work there are your local people. But it's, unless it's something like super specific that we need at the house, we just didn't use Amazon Prime that much anymore, and so we got rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, you get a free Twitch subscription, and you get, you know, to watch free movies. There's a lot of Amazon exclusive stuff that's on there.
There's a lot of exclusive stuff on Hulu and Netflix and everything else too. It's just one of those things that we just didn't it didn't pencil anymore. So, I mean, with that, educate yourselves. Oh, and Nightwolf says, if you search right to take advantage of the algorithm, you can use Facebook ads to lead you to free classes. He got 3D modeling, digital art, and music production classes that way. Nice. So yeah, you got to turn your ads on your computer though. That's the downside. But yeah, there's always promotions for free classes and things like that. But yeah, it's a good time to learn something. Be social, talk to people, ask them how they're doing. But yeah, anything else, Lloyd?
Yeah, I'll probably think of 10 things after the call, but the big thing is just be proactive.
That's what the Discord's for.
Don't sleep in.
I will. Yeah.
If you have an idea, toss it out there. So yeah, aside from that,
don't turn into a couch potato. Yeah. You can do that on the weekend.
I'll totally vouch for that one. It's very easy when you start working from home to get lax about exercise and what you eat and when you eat and all that kind of.
I feel like stuff. Working from home though, we should have like 3 or 4 day weekends.
You have more free time if you schedule well. You probably can.
I do schedule well, but I don't. I feel like the weekends are too short because I try not to work on the weekends. I do some things, but I try to not.
Actually, that touches on another problem we didn't even talk about. It's like, just like you have to schedule your time and make sure you're efficient, you also have to kind of schedule your off time. So it's real. What I do find is that it's actually gotten worse since everyone's been working from home. I'm spending a lot more time on the weekend working because there's no clear barrier. And actually, that's probably my next thing is going to schedule time where I'm not going to work at all, like on a Saturday or a Sunday, because I'm finding I'm actually working longer hours, even though I have more free time, especially in the last few weeks. Maybe because there's nothing else to do and I can't watch UNC lose. But
you should have watched enough of that shit this year. That was
well, now but now I can't take glee in you not making the tournament.
Hey, that's funny. I was like, we did not make the tournament. But this is a good point. I had the very same issue at our old house because my office was like literally right next to the living room. And so you didn't get that separation. Now I do have that separation. I mean, you literally can't walk from my office into the house. You have to go outside, upstairs, and then go to the house. But how big of a separation, how do you block off, work from home, basically?
I can't yet. I have to figure it out because it's not a physical separation because it's my devices. My life is my devices. It's probably the same for most of us. And I have my work email and I have Slack on my iPad, on my personal computer, as well as my work computer. So it's not, and it's impossible when you have that little icon that says or something, not checking.
I did this about maybe a year and a half, no, probably 2 years ago. I don't know. But we were going on vacation and I turned the email notifications off on my phone. So I didn't get a little ding or a little envelope at the top of my phone whenever I had, an email come in. I have yet to turn it back on. That is one of the best things that I did for my mental stability and being able to separate and say, okay, it's evening or it's the weekend or it's time to spend with family or whatever time it was. Just turning the email notifications off on my phone was an absolute blessing.
I agree with that 1,000%. The only notifications I have on my phone are when I get a text message, or I guess if I get a Facebook Messenger or like a phone call or voicemail. And then also on the like Discord and Slack, I have all of the noise notifications turned off, all of them. No freaking dings, no nothing, no. I can't deal with that.
There's nothing more aggravating than getting a ding, knowing it's from Discord and you can't find where it came from.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's one of the things. Just like now, I have that physical separator between the house and the office, but I'm the same way. I'll sit upstairs at night, with my laptop and be doing work stuff here and there. But for my mental health, turning off email notifications on my phone was a godsend.
Yeah. I used to do that, work until I went to bed, basically. But now it's like I try and stop before 5. I try and get up early and get all my work done by like 3 or 4. And then so I have the rest of the day off, and then I'll I'll come to my computer and sit down for like 15 or 20 minutes sometimes, but other than that, I can't do that anymore. I
love how we like get to the end of the show and then the audience starts getting involved. So Pophead says, you need a decent workspace at home to be efficient, not just a laptop and a phone. What does your home office workspace look like, Lloyd?
So mine's not bad, but I actually have a friend, who Dimitri, who didn't have a home office. He just had to start working from home, and he's been efficient, really just setting off a part of kind of owning the dining room table during the day. I think it's more, not everyone's going to have the perfect facilities. I'm lucky, because when I did decide I was going to work from home, I set up a standing desk. I have a regular desk. I have my printer here. I actually do think I have I like it, but it's not the reason. I could easily be inefficient or not work well without it. I think it's more you do have to have a dedicated space. And where you can set up and where you can kind of maintain the quiet part of it. That's the thing. You have to make sure, now that you're home with your partner, potentially with your kids, no one cares if your kids are running in the background or something, but it does get really distracting if you can't hear the person you're talking to or they can't hear you.
But you get a good set of headphones. I mean, that's one of the things that you don't think about when you don't work from home. But even in terms of, getting me focused, I mean, that's one of the things. If I've got my headphones on, regardless of the fact that there's nobody else in here except me and the dog, I still can get, me, Lloyd, I get distracted. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of those things that when I've got the headphones on, it's like, okay, nothing out here is happening. I can just get focused on what I'm doing. And we take it for granted, those of us who have been doing this, but yeah, it's like I've got a nice office now, and it's probably like the nicest office I've ever had, but it's also built out of half of our basement. And, if you don't have that room and you're working from the kitchen table, it's not easy. I mean, you're probably not in the most comfortable chair to be sitting around in, and you're getting used to it. So, it's good if you can get that spot blocked off, but if not, you kind of have to just make it your own, like Dimitri.
Yeah.
And
honestly, a lot of office environments suck. So it's there's different degrees of how much work you can get there. I've been in a lot of offices that are poorly laid out, or more distracting. It's I'm sorry I interrupted you, Indy. Go ahead.
To his point of like working with a laptop and a phone. The other day somebody asked me how I got we're doing the same thing, my coworker and I, and he said, "How do you get so much done? I feel like I'm always way behind you." And I'm like, "Well, what are you using for work?" And he goes, "A laptop and a trackpad." And that's why, is because you're using a freaking laptop and at least get a mouse, right? I use multiple monitors so I can have multiple things open, and I can copy and paste really quick. I could drag stuff over back and forth. I can, instead of having to close a tab and open a tab and then tab back and forth. And with I can't work with a trackpad. I can't. My wife is like, "Can you check this out on my laptop? Is there a mouse plugged in?" No. Will you get a mouse? Because I can't do it. I can't do it with a trackpad.
I'm the same way. It's like ever since I've been working with two monitors, it's like when I work on my laptop, I've got the trackpad on there, and it's like it's never as effective. I'm never as good as when I've got a mouse and I can flip back and forth and do things very easily, and then we've got Corey, who was on here. What do you have, like 6 monitors going on or something? It was absolutely crazy. So, I mean, it does help to, have everything set up properly, but maybe you don't. And so you just kind of have to. Then the
thing that sucks is like if you have to travel, like I use 4 monitors, right? So I've got the Discord and Slack open continually on one side. And then, and so when I travel and I have to use my laptop, even with a mouse, I'm like, fuck, I can't. It's stressful. It's stressful. I want one of those little things that you put on your laptop that opens up to multiple monitors.
What?
Yeah, it's a little monitor thing that you can plug in, and it opens up like this to multiple monitors on your laptop.
Huh. That's a new one. I haven't seen that one before. Alrighty. Well, as always, Lloyd, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You're always more than welcome to come and hang out with us for an hour. Anything else, Lloyd, Indy?
I'm good.
Nope.
We're
Thanks
good?
again for having me.
Yeah, thank you guys so
Alrighty.
much. You can join our Discord at discord.gg/indiegamebusiness, and you can also listen to all of our other podcasts at anchor.fm/indiegamebusiness. This one will be up soon. Thank you guys so much.
Cool. Thank you,
Thanks,
Andy.
everybody.
Bye.